Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, it's Hank Linderman. This is day 3 of this little Facebook Live thing that I've been doing. Today's is titled Hydroxychloroquine and Haircuts. So let's talk about haircuts first. Someone in one of the comments from yesterday's video said, "Man, I miss your long hair." So I think we're all going to have longer hair by the time this is finished, because of course we can't go to get our haircut. We can't go to the stylist. Sorry, Jill. Sorry, Carol. Believe me, I'd like to be there. So we're just going to do the best we can, and so I've got a good excuse to grow my hair back out a little bit. We should also probably talk about corporate haircuts. And in business, a haircut is when you lose some money, through some sort of deal or some sort of negotiation. When you get a loan forgiven, you might get a haircut, or when you go bankrupt, your assets don't get sold for 100 cents on the dollar, you get a haircut. I noticed that yesterday the Omni in downtown Louisville closed, and this is a brand new hotel. It's been open maybe a year, and they've shut down. And that must be really painful for the 200 to 300 people who probably work there. I'm just guessing. They have 600 rooms, and I'm guessing that there's 300 people who work there on various shifts, but it could be more. Obviously, that's going to be painful for them and for the company. It seems to me, and to a lot of people I speak with, that we really should have working people taken care of first. And corporations, we should protect their losses. We should backstop their losses. So, for example, in the case of the Omni, I think most citizens would be okay with covering their fixed costs. But I don't think we need to be responsible for their profit during this sort of worldwide crisis, or during a crisis like this. So the Omni is probably going to get a haircut on this, and hopefully they're not set up to receive reimbursements for profits that they maybe would have made. There's a lot of businesses that would have made profits right about now. I mean, we're right in the middle of we would have been in the middle of March Madness, which is a major deal especially for folks here in Kentucky. And we had 2 great teams this year in the state, so a lot of broken hearts over missing out on March Madness. And especially since we're all confined to home, we're running out of things to watch on Netflix. We'll get into that. Well, let's also follow up on a question from yesterday. Jim Bellinger was saying, when I complained a little bit about the amount of money going to corporations versus the amount of money actually going to people. And the amount of money going to corporations is quite large. It's larger than the amount that's going to be going to people. And the money that's going to corporations will have to be backed up by the Fed at a ratio of, I believe it's 10 times the amount they want to give out. So we're talking about $4.5 trillion of fiscal power that's going to be put behind this bailout of corporations. And of course, it was within a few hours of the bailout being signed that United Airlines announced they would not be able to keep everyone on. And they've said they'll be able to keep everyone on until September 30th, but after that, they will not be able to do it. So I think this is another example of that's information maybe that should have been made public before Congress voted on it. Maybe they understood, maybe they didn't. But United has gotten out there and said, we're going to be letting people go come September 30th. I wonder if we shouldn't have focused on backstopping their labor costs and their fixed costs, and that's it. And corporate executives who are used to making a lot of money because their corporations are doing well, their stock price is high, maybe they need a haircut about this time as well. I noticed airline stocks are up again. So again, they are expecting to make money, and they reacted very positively to the amount of money that was given to them. So I have some skepticism about this whole thing. I'm very concerned it'll turn into a boondoggle, a way for plutocrats basically to take advantage of our system and leave the rest of us, people who work and people who are regular citizens, out of the picture. So that gets me to my next subject. A healthy skepticism is required when we read the news. If you only listen to the news from one source, you're going to get a very limited picture. And if you only listen to news from 2 or 4 sources, you're still going to get a pretty limited picture. I try pretty hard to look for sources all over the country, all over the world, actually. So there's some links down there on the page that you can get a look at. We want to talk about hydroxychloroquine. And as you're aware, hydroxychloroquine is a drug that's been used for malaria. It's also used for lupus. For example, if you were going to travel to Africa in normal times and you were concerned about malaria, they would give you hydroxychloroquine as a prophylactic to prevent you from getting malaria. So it's a drug that's been around for quite a while. It's an antiviral. Patients who have lupus end up needing to take this on a regular basis. Well, beginning in Australia, I believe, a hospital in Queensland discovered that they could treat patients with hydroxychloroquine and slow the results of the disease, actually stop the disease. There's another doctor, I got something that I can't really vouch for because it's a picture of a letter, but it's a doctor who treats a Jewish community outside of New York City with about 30,000 members, and he had 350 patients and treated them with hydroxychloroquine and I believe azithromycin and zinc, and out of the 350, no hospitalizations, no deaths, and that breathing was restored within 3 to 4 hours. So this is all anecdotal. It doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, President Trump said that this drug is going to work and gave the indication. I'm sure we've heard the story of someone who tried to use a version of this chemical, and he and his wife tried it, and he died. The wife survived. Remember Rudy Giuliani? We haven't heard from him for a while. Well, he was tweeting yesterday complaining about certain governors, Democratic governors, who were holding up things, and you know, the hydroxychloroquine is 100% effective, and that Democrats were blocking the use of it, something like that. Well, Twitter took that down. So once again, you got to really have some skepticism about what you read. There are 2 other, or there's at least one other hydroxychloroquine link that's down there in the posting just before this, just before on my personal page, that I'd suggest you all get a look at and read. And the claim is that in France there's something going on with hydroxychloroquine, that they believe there are some nefarious corporate political types who are trying to corner the market on it so that profits can be higher. And this is one of the drawbacks of our system as it is right now, that we allow people to make extreme profits sometimes in medicine. We've all heard the story of the EpiPen that used to be $70 or $80, and a young Wall Street type bought the company that was making the EpiPens and raised the price to $800. So we do really need to watch companies that take advantage, and we need to watch politicians who help them do this. We have some other news today that I wanted to go over real quickly. Apparently, we've got a question. Someone asked a question. Jenna Kun Ray, are most of our medications made in China slowing down production and causing shortages? I don't believe that's the holdup. I believe our holdup is that our system is not really a system. Our medical system is hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of little interconnecting systems. And we have not seen the amount of testing that we need. I'm not sure what the holdup is. There's not a lot of conversation about it. As far as medications, the hydroxychloroquine is disappearing because it's already in circulation, but now everyone in the world wants some. So it's going to take a little while for production to ramp up. And I think production can probably occur in several places. So I think that's reason for hope, actually. And a few days ago, I think we're all going to go through phases where we feel a little hopeless and a little concerned because our world is changing right before our eyes. And when this is over, we're going to have a different world, and we're going to have different problems to face. Some of the problems we had before will be even bigger. And so at our own pace, we need to start thinking about what we want the future of the state of Kentucky, the United States of America, of the world to be. We need to start having a new way of thinking about things. And the headline I would say is we need to come up with a better way of justifying our actions than, well, I got a low price or I made a profit. We have to have some other values that counterbalance the desire for profit. And the desire for profit is not going to go away, but it needs to be balanced. And balance is one of the most difficult things. Balance is a moving target. You know, as soon as you think you're there, guess what? It changes. So it's one of those jobs that will never be finished. But right now, the balance between people and corporations is way out of whack. There's maybe some good news if you're a Trump supporter, and I have most of my neighbors around here, I believe, are Trump supporters. I'm in Grayson County, Kentucky, and they get along with me just fine, and I get along with them just fine. I love them, and they'll drop whatever they're doing to come over and help. And I think even among some of my neighbors, they're starting to get some, there's some awareness that, for example, we're not going to be stopping social isolation by Easter. That's not going to happen. And I think that's a good sign that President Trump talked about Easter and pushed it out there and got enough of a backlash that I didn't hear anything about Easter today. Over the past several weeks, Governor Whitmer of Michigan, who's a Democratic governor, has been complaining about the federal response to getting supplies to hospitals in Michigan. And one of the things she commented about was, you know, basic supplies like hospital gowns and masks and gloves and that kind of thing. The amount the federal government sent wasn't enough for one shift for the hospitals throughout the state. So it was woefully inadequate. And President Trump tweeted that she was a bad governor and she was weak or some other horrible thing. And insiders inside the Trump administration started to say they had been told to not really help governors that were criticizing him. And we've seen, by the way, we have a Kentucky Congressman, Thomas Massie, who really threw a wrench in the spokes when he forced Congress to come back and stand up there and vote. And President Trump thinks that Thomas Massie should be run out of the Republican Party. So he's got a problem with anybody that disagrees with him. So it's really great that he backed down on Easter. Reality is starting to make a difference. And it's the latest we've heard about Governor Whitmer. This happened maybe inside an hour. The state was granted emergency status and looks like they've straightened out their little argument. So I think that's a good sign. I do want to ask you all to think about the world we want. What should our priorities be? That's going to be one of the things I want to talk about, and perhaps tomorrow I'm going to talk about our national need to blame China for this. And maybe that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. So thank you all. I appreciate all your comments. Any criticisms are helpful too. I tried to arrange some visual aids, but I'm not quite there yet. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I'll do it again tomorrow. I think this time is probably a good time. I don't want to step on Governor Andy's 5 o'clock time. I don't know if he's doing it on Saturdays. I expect he is. But anyway, I hope you all are well and stay strong. It's really, really important that we follow the guidelines of social distancing. After I finish this, I'm going to go on my walk, and I'll walk for almost an hour or so, and I'll see neighbors out and about in the neighborhood, and we stay away from each other. So we don't yet have modern tools to fight this virus, or enough modern tools to fight this virus. And this isolation really is a medieval concept. It's a concept that is thousands of years old. And it's a shame that this is what we're going to have to do. But until we can get the tools we need to effectively fight this virus, this is the best thing we've got. So I hope you all will hang in there with it. We got a ways to go. All right. I love you all. Y'all take care. Bye.